Some monsters wear masks that are more human than human itself. Ted Bundy was one such monster. His face, a mask of charm, his smile, a beguiling trap that lured his victims to their doom. It was a face so deceptively handsome, so unsettlingly kind, that it concealed a soul steeped in shadows, a soul that danced on the edge of darkness and death. He was a predator, cloaked in the guise of an everyman, a law student, a political volunteer, a son, a boyfriend. He was the kind of man who could look you in the eye, make you feel seen, understood, even safe. And that was his gift, his terrible gift. For behind the eyes that sparkled with intellect and humor, there lurked something far more sinister, something that fed off fear and thrived in the dark recesses of the human mind. It was the late 1960s, and America was already in the grip of fear. The peace and love of the previous decade had given way to the brutal realities of war, political upheaval, and civil unrest. The streets felt different, darker, colder, as if the country itself were shifting underfoot. And in this landscape, where trust was already frayed and communities felt on edge, Ted Bundy began his quiet, calculated hunt. He moved across the country like a shadow, slipping in and out of cities and towns, leaving behind only the faintest traces of his presence. A sighting here, a conversation there, a flash of that disarming smile. He was charming, polite, educated, everything society wanted a young man to be. And he knew it. He knew exactly how to make women feel comfortable, to lower their guard, to step closer into his web. His victims were young, bright, full of life, the kind of women who should have had their whole lives ahead of them. Women who trusted a man with a kind face, a man who sometimes wore a sling or a cast, who seemed so helpless, so harmless, so utterly in need of help himself. And so they helped him. They leaned in, offered a hand, a smile, a few minutes of their time, and in that instant, they were lost. Bundy's weapon was not just his physical strength, though he had that in abundance. It was his uncanny ability to mimic humanity, to slip into a role so seamlessly that even those who knew him best, those who loved him, never saw the monster lurking beneath. He was a chameleon, a shapeshifter, able to become whatever he needed to be to get what he wanted. He studied his prey with the cold, calculating gaze of a scientist, understanding them better than they understood themselves. His first known victim was Joni Lenz, a young student whose life was filled with dreams and possibilities. She was found in her bed, brutally beaten, with a metal rod from her bed frame lodged deep into her body. She survived, but she would never be the same. And as she lay in a coma, hovering between life and death, Bundy moved on. He was already looking for his next prey, his mind hungry for the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of the kill. In the summer of 1974, the disappearances began to escalate. Two women, Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, vanished from Lake Sammamish State Park in broad daylight. They were last seen speaking with a man who had his arm in a sling, who introduced himself as Ted. It was audacious, brazen, even for him. And yet, it worked. He was so convincing, so earnest in his desperation, that they followed him willingly to his car, to their deaths. Days turned into weeks, and then months, and still, the bodies did not surface. Families grieved without closure. Mothers slept in their daughters' rooms, clinging to the scent of them on their clothes, their pillows. The terror began to seep into the towns, a slow, creeping dread that settled in the bones of the community. Women changed their routines, walked faster at night, began looking over their shoulders. But no one knew who they were looking for. No one knew where he would strike next. Bundy thrived in this darkness. He craved it. He loved the attention, the speculation, the power he held over the frightened masses. He was a master of deception, a puppet master pulling the strings, watching as the world tried in vain to decipher the enigma of his evil. Even when he was caught, when he was pulled over in Utah and arrested on suspicion, he did not crumble. He did not falter. He transformed again, morphing from the predator to the victim, a man wrongly accused, a man misunderstood. But the walls were closing in. Slowly, piece by piece, the puzzle began to take shape. The stolen car, the crowbar, the handcuffs found in his vehicle, these were not the tools of an innocent man. And yet he continued to charm, to manipulate, to twist the narrative to suit his needs. Even in custody, he was dangerous, using his wits and his looks to sway public opinion, to cast doubt on his guilt. He escaped twice, once from a courthouse library in Colorado where he jumped from a window while his guards were distracted, and again from a jail cell, where he starved himself thin enough to slip through the ceiling tiles. Each time, he disappeared into the night like smoke, a phantom moving through the darkness, leaving terror in his wake. His final spree took him to Florida, to a sorority house in Tallahassee, where the horror would reach its fever pitch. In the early hours of January 15, 1978, he crept into the Chi Omega house like a ghost. What followed was a frenzy, a bloodbath. He beat Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy to death with a piece of firewood, left them lying in their beds, their faces unrecognizable, their bodies brutalized beyond comprehension. He attacked 2 more women, Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner, who survived by some miracle, waking to a scene from a nightmare, their rooms painted in blood. He left the house that night as silently as he had entered, a dark figure slipping back into the shadows, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable horror. But his time was running out. The walls were closing in again, faster this time. He was arrested just a month later, caught driving a stolen car, exhausted, his face a mask of defiance and fear. In the end, he faced trial, a spectacle that captivated the nation, a performance where Bundy once again took center stage. He played the role of his life, charming, articulate, confident. He acted as his own attorney, cross-examining witnesses, making speeches, flashing that same disarming smile that had lured so many to their deaths. But this time, there would be no escape, no more games. The evidence was overwhelming, the jury was unmoved, and the verdict came back guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to death, condemning him to the electric chair. As he read the sentence, he looked at Bundy and said, "It's a tragedy for this court to see such a total waste of humanity as I've experienced in this courtroom. You're a bright young man. You'd have made a good lawyer, and I'd have loved to have you practice in front of me. But you went the wrong way, partner." Bundy's smile faltered for just a moment. For perhaps the first time, the mask slipped. The boyish charm, the affable grin, faded away, replaced by something darker, something more truthful. And in that fleeting second, there was a glimpse of the real Ted Bundy, the predator, the killer, the devil in disguise. On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Outside, a crowd gathered, cheering, waving signs that read, "Burn, Bundy, burn." But even in death, he remains a haunting presence, a reminder that true evil often comes in the most unexpected forms. A charming smile, a soft-spoken demeanor, a friendly stranger asking for help. Ted Bundy's story is one of deception, of manipulation, of pure, unadulterated evil. He was a master of masks, a chameleon who moved through life with a singular purpose, to kill. And he succeeded, time and time again, until his final breath was taken by the very society he had terrorized for so long. Yet, even now, decades after his death, his name still sends chills down the spine. His memory still lingers like a dark stain that refuses to fade. Ted Bundy may be gone, but the terror he wrought endures, echoing through the halls of history, a sinister reminder of the darkness that can dwell behind the most innocent of faces.